Today on In Good Company, we have a guest who truly embodies the spirit of innovation and empowerment. Joining us is Tali Lindberg, the dynamic entrepreneur behind Pebble and Wave. Tali's journey is a testament to the power of passion and resilience. Not only has she founded Pebble and Wave, but she also is the co-founder of Free Market Kids, a contributing writer for Bitcoin Magazine, and the host of OrangeHatterPod, a Bitcoin podcast tailored for busy women. Beyond her ventures, Tali co-hosts the Bitcoin Homeschoolers podcast and co-organizes the Kentuckiana Bitcoin Club. With over 20 years of experience as a registered nurse and a mother of four, Tali seamlessly blends her diverse experiences into her entrepreneurial journey. We're thrilled to dive into her story and explore the waves she's making in the industry. I can't wait to learn how she balances it all. You have kids of your own.
Yes.
Did I read that right?
I have 4 kids.
Okay.
And my youngest just turned 18 2 days ago.
Oh my goodness.
I have an 18-year-old, a 20, 21, 22.
Very close. Okay.
Very close.
Mm-hmm.
So I joke that we don't have any more minors in the house. We're all majors now.
Which sounds exhausting, but I mean, you made it. So boys, girls?
2 boys, 2 girls, and I homeschool them their entire school career from beginning to end. Yeah.
I mean, are you okay? Like, sanity-wise?
I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
I wish I had help, because the toughest part about homeschooling is not only do you have to do the school part, but then you also have to provide the lunch. You have to go plan the meals. You have to drive them different places. You got to schedule their activities.
Yep.
And on average, I would be in the car driving them different directions 3 to 4 hours a day, because we would go across town for one kid, then go across the town for another kid, go back and pick them up, all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
But I would do it literally all over again. And I would recommend it to anybody who's willing to at least try it for 1 year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, does that kind of lead into, having kids of your own, why you started Pebble and Wave?
Yes.
So tell me what that is.
Pebble and Wave is a project I started a few months ago. I split away from a company I started with my husband called Free Market Kids.
Okay.
Our original intent was to teach money literacy through board games. He's a board game designer, and we met in business school.
Okay.
We've always wanted to teach our kids what we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And as homeschoolers, we exposed them very early to money concepts, because we were both in that industry. And usually teachers in schools would say, you can't teach kids economics until they're in high school. That's a high school course.
Yeah.
I think that's bogus.
Okay.
So when my kids were in elementary, middle school, I said, let's teach them economics. I started teaching them accounting. And how do you teach economic principles without the graphs and the equations? But honestly, if you understand economics, none of that matters unless you want to go into academics.
Sure.
The most important part is helping them understand how price should move in a free market. Okay. So that was the drive to create the first game. My husband created a negotiation game.
Gosh, you guys are way cooler than like half the people I know. Okay, so we started some games.
So my youngest was, second grade maybe?
Yeah.
Like he was 8. And he was at a table with high schoolers. And he would just be shouting his negotiations across the table and mental math so quick. Mm-hmm. Sales through effective communication of the value of the product he's selling, and just having a blast. And then afterwards, you can ask them, well, how did price move when there was an increase in demand? Yeah. Usually in a school, they'll be like, okay, here's the equation, here's the graph, here's the math, blah, blah, blah. But my son would be able to say, if there's an increase in demand because of what he experienced in the game, the price will be bid up. That's all he needs to know. Is there anything else?
Right.
Not really.
The concept.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's really cool. I mean, what a flex, right? As an 8-year-old, because they're definitely not learning that today. No. I can tell you that for sure. So we have Pebble and Wave. We have a cool husband, obviously. And so you had a business background as well.
I do. When I met my husband, we were at Yale. We were getting our MBAs. He was a year ahead of me. The original plan was he was going to be a consultant. I was going to go into investment banking.
Cool.
And there's a whole story around why I decided to stay home. If it's okay, I'll tell it.
Please do.
So the original plan was that I was going to have a baby.
Yep.
And stay home for a couple months, hire a nanny, go back to work.
Of course. You're an investment banker.
Right.
I mean, that's life. You know, I love that.
When I was in business school, they used to bring in different speakers to tell us about what it's like to work in the industry we're thinking about.
Okay.
And I remember specifically 2 women who came and spoke to the female students specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
One of them was a VP in an investment bank on Wall Street. And she said, don't worry about having to balance your career and family because I am so successful in what I do. I hired a dedicated nanny for each one of my 4 kids.
Oh, my God. Okay.
She had 4 professional nannies working for her, taking care of her 4 kids. And she said that was how she balanced work and life. So we can do it, she said to us. Then another woman came on the stage and she said, women worry too much about how much time their kids want to spend with them because she had asked her own son, who was 12 at the time, do you want me to spend more time with you? And his answer to her was, why? I already see you on the weekends.
Okay. Yikes.
Now, at the time, I was single and I was listening to these women talk and I was really excited about going to work on Wall Street.
Of course.
And I thought, okay, great. That's good. It sounds like I can be a mom and a working. Yes.
Yeah.
Then my baby came and I had a nanny all lined up. It was ready to go. And I just had to give her a phone call and say, come start work and I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
But the baby came and I was holding her and I was like, if I hand her over now, I'm not going to see her anymore. I'm going to leave before she wakes up. I'm going to come home after she's gone to bed. Right. She's going to grow up with somebody else. She's going to learn other people's values. She's not going to have a relationship with me.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do that. But at the time, I had just finished my MBA program and I was on
you were on track.
The track, yes.
You were checking all of your boxes.
I was on the verge of going into investment banking and making lots of money.
Right. The goal, why you did all the things you did.
Why I sacrificed so much to be there. And of course, both families were like, are you insane?
Sure. Yeah.
Are you seriously thinking about staying home with your baby?
Yeah.
So that's funny because I ended up not only staying home with her, I had 3 more babies and I decided to homeschool them.
Okay.
All the way from when they were babies.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you about that story too, but from the baby time until they graduated high school.
Cool. And what are they doing today?
I have 2 still in college. One is about to graduate this summer. Another one's graduating next summer. 2 of them dropped out. So I had 2 who stayed and 2 dropped out.
Okay. 2 that are like, we don't know.
They went and they decided that they weren't getting out of it what they wanted.
Sure.
And the interesting situation was because I homeschooled them in a 1 schoolroom setting.
Okay.
So when my oldest started high school, my youngest started high school. But I had different requirements for them, but they basically were exposed to the same information.
Yeah.
So my oldest graduated and then my youngest, he was 13 at the time, I said to him, well, you've been doing high school stuff for 4 years.
Yeah.
So you can either continue to do the same thing for 4 more years, or you can take a standardized test like an ACT or something.
Yeah.
And prove to the rest of the world that you can read and do math.
Yeah.
And if you get 85% score, I'll let you graduate. Do you want to do that or do you want to go another 4 years?
Yeah.
And he said, I want to graduate. So he spent a few months studying the ACT.
Cool.
He got 85 percentile, which fulfilled my requirement for him. So he graduated when he was 13 and started college when he was 14.
Wow.
But it was around COVID, so it was an online program.
Okay.
Yeah. He did that for 1 year. And then he came to me one day and he said, Mom, I'm not going to continue. I said, you're going to be a 14-year-old college dropout?
Yeah.
Why on earth would you say that? He said, I'm not learning anything. I'm not learning anything because the professors give me assignments and then I'm reviewed by my peers who don't know what they're doing. And I'm paying professors to give me assignments, but they don't teach me how to do it because they tell me I have to go figure it out. He goes, I'll give myself assignments and I will go figure it out. And I want to drop out.
Oh, man, what were you thinking?
I said, if I trusted you to start college, I'll trust you to drop out, but you better have a plan. You're not going to stay home and play video games.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone that had never homeschooled and, I'll just use me, I have never homeschooled my children and I wanted to start now. Do you feel like, or have you seen, with families you've worked with, that the kids are somewhat successful? The transition from public or private to homeschool is, to me, seems so heavy, seems so big. What kind of success have you seen with that?
Well, number one, I would say definitely have an open conversation with your child and make sure you're both on board.
Yeah.
Because if you take them out of school kicking and screaming, that's not good.
Yeah.
So if you're both on board, it's not something where once you start, you can't ever stop. You can always say, let's try it for 1 year. And if we don't like it, then you go back to school. I have seen many families who have done that. And that's totally fine. The child isn't going to fall behind because you'd be so surprised how much you can accomplish in a fraction of the time they actually spend in school. And the freedom allows them to really go after what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
I feel that there is a huge fallacy in education that everybody has to know the same stuff at a certain level. So there's a really wonderful book by Jennifer Fox called Your Child's Strength. And she talks about how because we are in a global economy now, you're not competing with just your neighbors or people in your town. You're competing against the world.
Right.
And in order to stand out, you have to have one track of expertise.
Yes.
And if let's say you're very, very good in art, you have a natural inclination, you see things differently, you express yourself through drawings, but you're forced to spend an hour a night doing your algebra homework. And then maybe because you hate it so much, you now have extra tutoring, and then maybe you have summer school.
Yeah.
Just so you can fulfill that artificial expectation of doing algebra.
Right.
And the question is, how many of us use algebra today?
Right.
Not many.
Really many people.
Not that many. But all those times that you are required to do that one thing, you could be perfecting your technique in the art that you're already interested in.
Yeah.
And how much further can you go because you love it already?
Yeah. You're passionate about it.
Exactly. And then when you go onto the global marketplace, you will stand up so much more than somebody who knows algebra, because what does that really do for you?
Yeah.
Not that much.
I love that.
Do I think you shouldn't know math? No, I think you should know math. You should know how to add, subtract, and the basic stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't all need to know how to do geometry. We don't all need to do algebra.
Oh my gosh, I think I just got my eye twitched a little when you said that, because I've never used it, but I talk about that so much, especially like you mentioned, doing financial literacy. We're not taught the basics, and so you're playing catch up when you're an adult. So yeah, I love hearing you say that, especially when you see these kids that maybe aren't strong in the in the STEM area, but they're more creative and they're forced to go in this box, and at least for 18 years of their life that we want them to fit in this box. And then if they're creative after school, we say, well, now you can be creative. So I love that you kind of mentioned homeschool can bring more space to those people. I have 2 kids, as I mentioned, and they are night and day. One would love to put his feet in the grass and, pick flowers and all that stuff, look at the stars, while the other thrives in a classroom because he is math and science. So do you think that what you and your husband started, what you started with Pebble and Wave, that this is opening up some of those parents' eyes that felt, I might not be able to do this? Because homeschooling feels, at least for me, I'll say for business women specifically, like how in the world would I fit this into my life and make sure that my kids are successful, not missing out, as you mentioned?
There are many families where both parents work and yet they homeschool, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people, when they think homeschool, they think the parent has to teach everything.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Okay.
There are so many varieties of homeschooling you can get into. For example, even locally, there are places like New Song Academy for kids. I believe it's kindergarten through 8th grade, where you drop them off 2 days a week and they learn everything they need to learn. They have teachers who tell them, who teach and then grade their assignments. And your job the other 3 days are just to make sure that they are doing their homework.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you get to choose what classes they take, which teacher they have.
Yeah.
And then you can decide what they want to do in their free time, free time. So that's one variation. There are other people who just do homeschooling online. There are online academies. So I don't personally agree with that because kids are in front of screens already way too much.
So much.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's another school locally, Highlands Latin, and they have a homeschooler co-op. You can go 1 day a week or you can go 2 days a week.
Okay.
And again, if you cover all the subjects, you don't have to find the material. You don't have to prepare the lessons. You don't have to do the grading. But you're still considered a homeschooler because they're still getting all of the information.
Okay.
But you get to decide where they go and what classes they take.
I love that.
And the kids will still have that free time
Yeah.
you want for them.
I love that. Okay. I have heard of Highland Latin, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It was a school we visited before we put our kids in school. Very prestigious feeling, but very basic in the offering part. I remember they didn't have screens and, they didn't have the smart boards and, they still use landlines, so that was really cool to see and a way to bring it all together. It's kind of a technology ridden world. So.
There are a lot of different homeschooling, I would say, philosophies. So Highlands Latin is of the classical education philosophy.
Okay.
So they do things more traditionally.
Sure.
If you go to a different setup, because I know that there are small co-ops all over Louisville as well. Some of them can get very, very free form, I should say. And it's more experiential. And so the parents get together and they teach their own area of expertise instead of just having the kids memorize Latin vocabulary. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. And how does Pebble and Wave kind of come into all that? Is it just would you consider it a resource, or are you the modern day super nanny? Remember that British lady Jo?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I used to watch her all the time.
Yeah.
And I agree with some stuff and I really disagree with some stuff.
Yeah.
But I did try. I implemented her. Do you remember when she used to have kids who wouldn't sleep? And then the parents would bring them back. And then you have the camera in the dark.
Yeah.
And then you have the time, like the time rolling, and it'll be like first night, 2 hours to put them in bed. The second night, 45 minutes.
And you would be like, please stay in your bed as the audience. Yeah.
So I follow that.
Okay.
And my kids were 2 hours the first night, 2 hours the second night, 2 hours the third night. We never got it down.
Solid
finally,
2 hours.
Yes. My husband and I were so tired. I was just like, forget it. Just everybody come into our king size bed.
Right. This is what we're doing. I mean,
this is we need to sleep. And so the 6 of us in the same bed. So
you had a whole tribe just right at your fingertips.
We just need to sleep. You just get to the point.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very familiar with her work.
Yeah.
And Pebble and Wave is not about that at all. So Pebble and Wave actually came about because, well, my husband and I were working on free market kids and teaching people money literacy. And especially there's a lot of confusion about cryptocurrency and what is that, digital asset, all that
It's
stuff.
like a foreign language.
It is. And then there's a whole other story about how I even got into it. But as we were traveling the country and telling people about the board games and helping people try to share that knowledge with their family and friends, I realized more and more that as older people, we have so much unlearning to do because there's a lot of false information out there. And if you've made so many life decisions based on false information, you have this mental block that you don't want to think that you've made all the wrong decisions based on wrong information.
Right.
So we're having to fight against that so much when we're trying to share knowledge. So I thought about it over several months. I'm like, how do I get around this? People need this information because it will empower them. It will empower them to see through a different lens at their own financial decisions and really life decisions, because money touches every aspect of life, because it influences every industry completely, right? And if we don't understand money, we are at the mercy of sound bites and politician,
the TikTok bros.
Yes, exactly. And then you just become sort of a pawn in people's power play, because they can direct you to vote a certain way. They can direct you to hate certain groups of people. And they can direct you to support causes that you don't understand. Right?
That's so true.
So the knowledge is so important. And yet we're just really coming up to this roadblock of people not wanting to hear it for a variety of reasons. So I stepped back and I looked at him like, you know what? I think I need to go younger. And then I was thinking maybe middle school, because, who wants to talk about money when you're 5? Nobody.
Right. My
Unless
child
you're just
has a very different perspective of money.
Right. So okay, middle school, elementary school, how about we start way in the beginning, kindergarten?
Okay.
But we don't talk about inflation and money printing and things like that because it's irrelevant at their age. What is relevant, I believe, is this empowerment that comes from the inside. Now, when I talk about empowerment of children, a lot of people just think you need to tell them to like do affirmations and
I am smart, I am handsome.
Right, exactly. And then to say I'm awesome, that kind of thing. A lot of people just think of it that way, but that's not real.
Right.
That's not real because it's deeper than that. And there's so many young people today who don't know that they are worthy. They are so ungrounded that they are, people blame social media, but I think that's part of it. The deepest problem is they don't know their own self-worth because nobody ever taught them to look. Because we're so focused on trying to prop them up that we take their attention from the internal to the external. So we prop them up with praises. Moms will praise the kids for doing something right. We thank the kids for listening to us.
Right.
We give them stickers. We give them charts on the wall. We give them participation trophies. Every time they do something, it's a certificate. But they're every single one of those things external to themselves. What are they saying to themselves in their head? That's what I want to
most.
Right. So that's the part I most want to affect, because if you feel worthy, then when people tell you something that's good for you, you'll align with it. Versus if I tell you something that's good for you, but you think you're not worthy on the inside, like deep down, you may not even be able to verbalize it.
Right.
But if I say, hey, you should eat an apple a day, and you're like, give me a piece of cake,
every day,
because you will. So how do you build them up from the inside so they will look for things that are good for themselves? Not because mom says you shouldn't go out drinking with your friends, not because you said so, but because they don't see it aligning with who they are. Right? So Pebble and Wave, the goal in the in reaching the kindergarten, first grade, second grade group,
Mm-hmm.
for me is let's build that up. Let's not talk about money. We'll like sprinkle breadcrumbs about money concepts and the emotional pain that is associated with our current pretty bad monetary system.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I want to do with that information is just to allow them to start to notice things.
Yeah.
But that's it when they're that age, right?
Okay.
But most importantly, what I want them to notice is that they are already good, because human beings, if you think about the assumptions we make about parenting, we believe generally that we need to put something in them that's not already there. We need to put goodness in them. We need to put kindness in them. We need to teach them kindness. But I believe that inherently people are kind.
Right.
They don't always get to show it in a way that is acknowledged by their social group. So for example, I'm thinking even the meanest guy on the planet, if he saw a starving dog, he might throw a piece of bread at the dog.
Sure. Okay.
Right? It's conceivable.
Right.
It's conceivable.
Yeah.
What if we noticed and taught our kids to notice when they do something good that is in passing, that generally goes unnoticed, that generally doesn't even register they did, but we bring attention to it because what we bring attention to amplifies generally. So let's say you have a 7-year-old and at the end of the night, right, or at the end of the day, he's getting ready to go to sleep, and you just ask him one question. What did you do today that made a difference for someone? So it could be, let's say, he was on the playground and someone fell and he just stopped and said, "Are you okay?" It's in passing.
Yep.
It took place in 2 seconds. But in that moment, to the person who heard it, you just told that person matters.
Yep.
Right? That made a difference.
Yeah.
It would have made a difference for me. It's very simple, right? So you
I love that.
Draw a picture, just one thing. We're not going to write down everything. One thing. You draw a picture, you write a sentence, you identify your superpower. So in that moment, maybe he would say, maybe he'll draw a picture of maybe a face with a bubble, depending on how well he draws or how much he loves drawing or not.
It's a little iffy sometimes, yeah.
So let's just say it's a face with a bubble. That's what he did. And then and then the one sentence, I asked my friend if he's okay. And then the superpower can be his words, his compassion, his attention, his eye contact. It could be anything, but you just write down one thing. Okay, that's it. 5 minutes, that's it. Put it away. Next day. And the next day.
Yeah.
And the next day. If you compound that over and over again, that's where the pebble becomes the tidal wave, right?
Okay.
There will be an unshakable, deep knowing in the child that he's capable, he's powerful, he matters, he can make a difference. And that self-confidence is not being propped up by anybody else. It is internal, right?
Yeah, and it's so relevant. You know, I can speak for myself, but I can speak for a lot of other moms because I talk to, my whole world is moms. That I got truth bumps, honestly. Little hairs were sticking up because there is such a shift in parenting, you know, with 30-something-year-old moms and young children, where, you know, we had a different upbringing. And so we're trying to do all of the things for our kids. So I think about, like, how much did my parents sit on the floor and play with me? Not much. And it was just normal. That was just, you know, how it was. And then the next generation comes in, and myself, these other moms I've talked to say, well, I'm going to do everything different because suddenly I wish my mom would have played with me on the floor. And so I need to be present, play with them on the floor. I need to be able to teach them all of the things. I need to also be their best friend, but also a strong disciplinarian. And it becomes very overwhelming. You check out. And so then what we're seeing, and, tell me your thoughts on this, is these children that are not mentally tough. They are used to being catered to. Their parents are their friends. They're not used to handling hard situations. They're not empowered, confident, and whatever struggles that they're feeling, me, another mom, are wanting to fix it for them. We don't want our kids to suffer. Mm-hmm. We want to make it as easy as possible. But then we see these random breakdown from these kids, or they can't handle losing board games, baseball games, any kind of negativity that comes their way. They're not prepared. Yeah. So I'm so interested, how do we correct this culture of the participation award culture? My kid and I are best friends, but my kid is also freaking out because he struck out. How do we find that middle ground again? Or is it just too late? I mean, do we just give up? Do we just say we just need to throw them in the trash and start over? Where do we go?
I don't think we give up. I think we, as parents, shouldn't be our children's best friend. You know how they say in the military, the leader cannot be buddies with the people they command?
Yeah.
So when I go to grocery stores and I hear parents give their child a command and then say, thank you for listening, it drives me.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts because honestly, kids can't feel safe with a friend. They feel safe with a protector. And we are there to protect them by giving them the rails.
Yeah.
They need to know how far they can go to the right and stay safe and how far they can go to the left.
Sure.
If we say anything goes because I'm your best friend, they don't know where the boundaries are. They're scared.
Yeah.
So they're scared, but they don't know how to say it.
Sure.
And they act out in that way. I was talking about this with another mom just the other day. She was referencing a study that was done with 2 litters of golden retriever puppies.
I love it already. Already love it.
One puppy, one litter was allowed to interact freely. Okay. So you know how puppies can get very rambunctious? They attack each other, they mouth each other, and sometimes one would yelp and the other one, sometimes they draw blood, but they're just left alone and dip puppy stuff.
Okay.
The other litter was put in a padded room. Their claws were covered. Their mouth was put like a muzzle on, so they can't hurt each other or themselves.
Okay.
And then they had an intelligence test when they grew up, the 2 litters. The litter that was left to play as they were supposed to play, tested intelligent, because golden retriever tests very high in their intelligence levels. According to this person who shared this story with me, and I haven't looked it up, the other litter tested as very dumb dogs that cannot problem solve.
Interesting.
Because they were never allowed to receive feedback from their actions. So when we have our kids entertained all the time, supervised all the time, we're not allowing them to feel the pain that would be the feedback. I have this memory of one particular family where the parents were told that they should let their kids freely express, meaning they had no rules whatsoever, no behavior rules, no corrections, nothing. When we get together as a group of homeschoolers, the kids don't want to play with the kids because
they're weird and wild.
They don't compromise. You can't play with them. The parents don't want to work with the kids. Like when we come together and we share our expertise and we teach each other's kids, nobody wants to teach that kid because he's disrespectful. He interrupts. He runs around because nobody can tell him no. Like I tell him no when he's in my class, but he doesn't listen because his parents didn't enforce it.
Right.
So this child is doomed, and he doesn't, not doomed.
I mean,
this child
I was thinking it, but
was quite isolated.
Yeah.
By all the people around him, and he has no clue why. We all know why. but we're not in the position to share that information with him.
Right.
So he has zero social skills. How is he supposed to? Nobody's going to put up with him. He can freely express by himself forever, so I don't think it is a lost cause for our generation of parents and their children. It's just we need to understand that it is okay for them to fall down and get a bloody knee. Yeah. That's okay. They can recover from that. If they get into a fight and somebody punches another kid, not, like serious abuse or anything like that, but like they have an unsuccessful process of working out a difference. We can talk to them and say, next time, do this. But if we don't even give them the chance to get into that kind of confrontation, how are they supposed to learn?
So it's that balance of, setting up safe boundaries, rules that serve whatever age they're at, wherever they're at, but also allowing a little bit of self-observation and exploring where they feel safe to do it.
And also, like, of course, pick your battles.
Yeah.
So I come from a very conservative Chinese culture where it is a one-way street. It is the parents said this and you don't have any choice. I don't agree with that. That authoritarian children have no power. I don't agree with that. I also don't agree that children should be treated like adults because they're not. They don't have the knowledge yet.
Right.
So, for example, if your child is younger and you want to give them the knowledge of how to choose healthy foods to eat, you don't have to say, just eat whatever you want. You can say, well, it's snack time. You can choose an apple or a banana. But candy is not one of the choices.
Right.
You can choose an apple or a banana.
Your choice with a boundary.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
If they're older, for me, my son really liked long hair. And it drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Because
that's rough. Yeah.
I'm like, why would you want your hair in your face?
Yeah.
But in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It's my preference versus his. There's no right or wrong to it. So I'm like, fine, go have your long hair. It's
do
fine.
Your thing.
It's
fine. It looks ridiculous, but this is what you want to do.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
In his mind, it's beautiful. So like, that's fine. But there are other boundaries where I would put my foot down. I'm like, you're not going to lie to me ever. That's not okay.
Right.
We will be honest with each other. I will never lie to you. That's a strict rule. There is no flexibility in that.
So you promised them that you wouldn't lie either. Interesting. Not even like a sugarcoating situation. Interesting.
I'll share a crazy story with you. My kids are part Jewish.
Okay.
I think they're 12% Jewish. We were in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to take them to the Holocaust Museum. They were young.
Choice. That was 0 to 100. But okay, I see what's happening.
They were young, and I took them to the first floor where everything is still kind of neutral and they're just introduction and stuff.
Okay.
If you get into the elevator and you go to the second floor, that's when the graphic pictures.
You're right.
My kids were in elementary school, and
that's a good age to introduce it. Like, just this is what it is.
I brought them into the elevator, and the lady who was pushing the button, she goes, "Ma'am, are you sure?"
Oh.
And I said, "Kids lived through that.
Yeah.
We're just looking at pictures. Kids actually lived through that.
Yeah.
It's part of their family tree. I'm going to let them see what happened. Yeah. It's an ugly, ugly truth."
Right.
So we go up to the second floor, and I was traumatized by the first picture. Myself.
You. Okay.
Me.
Okay.
My kids didn't know what they were looking at. They're like, there were so many people. And I was just like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So I ushered them through that floor so fast.
Sure.
Because I was traumatized. But afterwards, I asked them, what do you remember? They don't remember anything. They didn't see anything. Because I rushed them.
Are you okay? Yeah.
I'm not okay. How can people treat each other that way?
Right.
It just.
So really, you should have been worried about.
There's an introduction stage that I kind of missed. I was too gung-ho about showing them reality, and so that's a learning experience for me. They're like, when they're that young, you talk about child safety all the time.
Yeah.
How much do you tell them so that you don't scare them, but they're careful?
Yeah. I mean, it's like 1995 in my house. So honestly, I'm like, do you want to get hit by a car? And they're like, not really. And I'm like, well, then look where you're, look both ways. So
Right.
probably not always the right way, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely the bad cop and the very honest black and white one.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband's like sprinkles the gray and the color into
Yeah.
our house.
Well, you need both.
Yeah,
You need
it's a
both.
balance. It
Yeah.
is a balance.
Yeah.
So knowing, piggybacking off your Holocaust story, if you could choose a theme song for your journey of homeschooling, starting this Pebble and Wave resource, what song kind of comes to mind? Was it chaos? Were you caffeinated and delusional, or do you feel like you were just keeping it cool? You were cool as cucumber.
I wasn't cool.
Cool. Yeah, I get that. 100%.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I had probably more fun learning stuff than my kids did because when I would order their school books, I will hug the books before I give them to the kids because I love the books.
Yeah.
I have books everywhere in my house.
Yeah.
A theme song. I don't know what theme song I would play for myself, but I did used to have morning songs I would have the kids sing.
Okay.
One of them was Humble and Kind. I think it was a country song. Tim McGraw.
Oh, I mean, oh, gee. Okay.
Right. And then there's another one. This is going to be the best day of my life.
Oh, that's a good one. My kids like that one too. Yeah.
And so every morning I wanted them to repeat positive lyrics in their mind. And I always told them, whatever music you choose and you're rolling those words around in your head, make sure those words are going to help you and not hurt you. So I told them to pay attention to even lyrics of the songs they would listen to. I didn't control what they listened to, but I said, just remember, it will influence you.
Yeah.
What you repeat over and over.
That's
or
so good to remember.
Passively.
I love that.
So for that reason, every morning I wanted to get ahead of it.
Let's just start off with a 10 positivity.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just listen to good lyrics.
Yeah.
But in terms of myself,
yeah,
everything I listened to was the kids' songs. So
really? I mean, sometimes they're good. I'll tell you, my little one has a Tony box. Have you seen those Tonys? What? These Tony boxes are these little music boxes, and you can put little characters on top. And every character either reads a book, sings a song, takes you through an experience. And my 7-year-old puts this little dog. It's a little purple dog with a gold chain. It's the Snoop Dogg affirmations. And I'll tell you, sometimes I feel it, and it is infectious. My 13-year-old's like, gosh, but me, I'm like, I am healthy. I mean, it's pretty good. Yeah. That's usually what our mornings. Nice. Snoop Dogg.
I like it. That's new.
That's
new technology.
Narrating it. Yes, we are new age with the Tonys. That's awesome. So that one's a good one. And my husband, the musician, usually somewhere there's music playing, country and blues. So I'll have to ask him if he knows Tim McGraw because he's an OG. So I would be remiss if I did not ask about your own podcast and your own show. What would you call it? Podcast or show?
Podcast.
Okay.
I had 2. Now I just have 1. The first one is called Orange Hatter, and I did 100 episodes, and now I'm rethinking what I want to focus on. But Orange Hatter was the podcast I started so that women can tell other women about Bitcoin. Because when my husband and I started traveling around the country to share Bitcoin education with people, what we realized very quickly was that most gatherings were 99% men.
Yes.
Because women, when they go into that situation, there are generally 2 groups of women who go to those meetings. One would be someone who's very tech savvy and is right in there in the conversation.
Yep.
The other one would be a partner of someone who's actually in this space and she's sitting in the corner scrolling on her phone because the discussion is going over her head. She's not interested. She's just like, I'm just here to support my partner.
Whatever they want to do.
Right. But the truth is that a lot of women control the finances in the house.
Isn't that interesting?
Right. But they are so bogged down by their to-do list because we have so many balls in the air all the time we're juggling, right? Especially if you're a mom. And Bitcoin is a subject that completely changes the way you see the world. Completely. So if you go into a space that's masculine in communication style and you don't have tech knowledge, or you're slightly even intimidated by the thought of understanding cryptocurrency, you're just going to be like, I'll just let him handle it, right? So I started Orange Hatter because I said this is something that all people should understand, not just men, not just women, all people. Children need to understand this.
Yeah.
So how do we get more women to the table to learn? Yeah. Because whether you are for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrency, or against one or the other, at least make your decision based on knowledge.
Yes.
And not guesswork.
Yep.
So Orange Hatter I started because I wanted women telling women about Bitcoin the way women talk. Yeah. Because when I go into a space and I'm talking to men, a lot of times I can see behind their eyes when I'm talking. Yeah. They're like, how do I get out of this conversation politely? Because even my husband and my sons would say, Mom, what is your point? Yeah. Because I'm giving them all this background because that's the way I like to talk. Right. And they're like, you're taking too long to get to your point. And I said, but that's where the meat is.
Yeah. Just walk with me.
It's not the bullet point. Yeah. It is the story. It is the feeling. It is what's going on with my emotions. Right. Connect with me on emotions first, and then I'll care about what you're saying. Yeah. So Orange Hatter was for that. I did 100 episodes, and then I wrapped it up because it was taking so much of my time. I'm like, okay, so once I get women closer, like to the table, where do I send them then? Do I just send them to websites so they can re-up on their own? Do I send them to YouTube channels? And I didn't want to gather women together and then send them off. Right. So I gather women together and I say, okay, let's start a reading club. Because it's all about education. Yeah. So let's read together. Let's discuss it women way. Like I see it as tea and biscuit versus whiskey and cigar. Yeah. So like I want it to be warm and fuzzy. I want to ask about your family. I want to feel good. Yeah. How was your week? How do you feel? Do you have a backache today? How's your head? Like literally let's connect first as humans. Yep. And then we'll discuss the chapter. Okay. So it's all about learning, but relationship comes first.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's my reading club. That is going on right now. And we would spend several weeks diving chapter by chapter in a chosen book. And then I always have an author come and do Q&A at the end of it.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been amazing. So that's why that's Orange Hatter. The other podcast is called Bitcoin Homeschoolers because we did homeschool. And we talk about sovereignty in education. Because when you go into either a public or private school situation, the government or whatever the board decides what your child should learn. And as we've already talked about, I just disagree that everybody needs to know the same things. Right. I think we're all born with a very unique leaning toward specific subjects, specific type of expression, specific way of learning. And if there's any way we can help them go farther with what they already love, then why would we not do that? So Bitcoin Homeschoolers, we talk a lot about just different education ideas and approaches, different tools, resources. Okay. If you can't formally homeschool, what else can you do? Because you can convey so much just over the dinner table if you will talk to them.
Yeah. Sounds scary. But yes, I love
Why is that scary? Why is that scary?
I think it's the season that my preteen's in. Now the 7-year-old will talk all day, but the 13-year-old is like pulling teeth to have a conversation, and he's scary.
Why is he scary?
Those little preteens, sometimes I just get that feeling very humbling. I walk out and I feel good. I'm like, man, I'm trying these wide legs today. Like, this is the style. I'm going to try it. And I'm going to try these like cool little slide-ins and he'll see it and be like, and then walk away. And I'm like, I knew it. I knew that this wasn't cool. I had the idea of coolness, but he humbled me with one up down. And he probably means nothing by it, but I'm an observer. So he's a little rough. He's a Sour Patch Kid right now. We're just along for the ride. But kind of wrapping it up, how can people find you? I mean, we've got Pebble and Wave, we've got cool board games, we've got podcasts. I mean, what is there a one-stop find me here, or what's the best way for people to find you?
Go to talilindberg.com.
Oh,
and
beautiful. Okay.
all of my socials are on there.
Okay.
The other place you can go is freemarketkids.com, and
Okay.
that's the company that I started with my husband.
Yep.
But I don't have it associated with Tali Lindberg right now.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Totally. That is so cool. I feel like people are going to love these board games. I'm excited. Can you buy those on the website? Okay.
Yeah, and they're also available on Amazon.
Oops. Well, if you got Daddy Bezos on your side, you've got to be successful. Okay. So we'll get a board game. We're going to go to TaliLindberg.com. One last final question I like to ask is, can you think of one habit, something you picked up kind of through all of that? Like the fact that you homeschooled for that long, honestly, I just want to keep asking, are you okay? But you look okay. One habit that kind of helped keep your sanity or helped you feel like I did this thing and I feel good. Is there one or two things that you did throughout the way that helped?
Yes, and this is what I want to tell all parents. Be careful of what you assume about your kid's behavior.
Okay. Feel that.
Because we'll go back to the example you just used.
Yeah, I figured you would. Yeah. That's okay. I'm okay.
He gave you an up down.
Mm-hmm.
In your mind, if you assume he's dissing you, you will respond one way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you assume he's having a knee-jerk reaction, which is his true feelings, then maybe you don't take it personally. You can also assume he's trying his very best to be polite because he didn't say anything.
Okay, I like that one.
So depending on your assumptions, you don't even need to try to change your behavior. It will be so natural.
Right.
You just will have a different interaction with him.
Yep.
And that interaction will create a chain reaction of the next interaction, interaction. So when you say, I have a teenager and oh my gosh, almost like you have to brace for the teenage years.
Yeah.
Like the terrible twos, people tell you to brace for the terrible twos, right? I don't even remember what it was called, but somewhere I read a book that said, why should there be a period of terrible twos or the scary teenage years? Because if you have a respectful relationship with your kids, you should be able to communicate at any age. You just have to, now this is my part now, is be careful what you assume. So for example, really quickly, because I read that book, I never assumed my kids were going to the terrible twos, and we didn't.
Interesting.
When my kids went into teen years, I didn't have any power struggles with them.
Right.
We just didn't because I wasn't expecting it. I didn't treat them as such.
Yeah.
So my son, when he was 15, started dating. And when you start dating, you start to want to see yourself as not a child, but a young man, right?
Sure.
So he began to try to separate a little bit from what we do and what we say, and want to do his own thing. I could have assumed that he was now rebelling against me. Thankfully, I didn't. I saw him trying to figure out who he is. So I put boundaries in where it was necessary to protect him. But otherwise, if he chose a different option out of a situation that I'd have chosen, I recognize that he's just trying to figure out who he is. And because I didn't attack him for it.
Right.
He didn't attack me back, and we never had that power struggle.
Oh, that's so good. That's
So,
such a good reminder.
yeah, so the assumption is so subtle
Yeah.
that we don't really think about it,
Yeah.
but man, it is a powerful.
And
It's
I
very
feel like that's something you could even kind of bleeds into everyday life.
Mhm.
Not assuming people's intentions based on whatever behavior or things that they're doing,
Mhm.
especially when you're networking and meeting a lot of people, having kind of an open spirit for it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's so nice. Well, I didn't even look at this. So if anyone is watching this and they are just as interested in diving in even more for everything that you do, which is so exciting, TaliLindberg.com
Mhm.
is the place to go. And thank you so much for coming.
If I could do it all over again, there'd be no wish I would or should have been. Spend more time with my family and friends. If I could do it all over again, I'd wake up early and start my day. Count my blessings and appreciate all my flaws and every single mistake. Know there's a reason God made me this way. It was back when I was running, sowing seeds of wake-up bones. I sat on a threadbare throne, fit for the king of feeling alone. Take me home. I hold on to time and never wish it away. Forget about the hurry up and wait. Skip the overtime and sleeping late. Give back a little more than I take. Love my woman just a little more. Ask if she needs something from the store. With every chance I dance her out on the floor. Never forget to hold the door. All those times I failed to tell you when I was wrong. Keeping you wondering where the hell I've gone. I was wrong. Time is ticking, ain't no reason to look back. There ain't no changing the things that happened in the past. It's long gone, baby, set in stone. Don't forget, there's a dead life is but alone. Oh. If I could do it all over again, there'd be no wish I was or should have been. Spend that time with my family and friends. If I could do it again.